In a world where both the hero and the Demon King exist, the hero is someone who fights for the sake of the Empire. On the other hand, the Demon King is the one true ruler of the demonic realm. The hero gets his abilities and powers from the world and uses them for the purpose of taking out the Demon King, who exists for the sole purpose of killing the hero. As the two face off against each other, the Demon King appreciatively remarks that the hero this time is very aggressive. As the hero wields his word, the Demon King fires powerful purple magic at him, causing a huge explosion. Two people stand afar and one of them says that they've got the Demon King's back, but the other tells him to focus on stopping the humans for now. As those who are completely obedient to the Demon King known as the Corps Commanders enter the field, and one of them takes out one of the hero's subordinates before cheekily greeting the others. There are a total of 12 Corps Commanders who are named ranging from the numbers 1 to 12 and are the cruelly powerful assistants of the Demon King. It is said that there's no one who can fight with them as an equal, but even they are unable to deal with the troublesome hero. As they rush towards the humans and start attacking them with the full might of their powers, saying that they'll obliterate every last one of them. The hero uses and activates the sheer power of his sword as someone looks in shock and acknowledges the hero's actual powers. Despite how none of the Corps Commanders are able to fight against him, there does exist a person who has successfully defeated the hero before. The Zero Corps Commander Akka, the Demon Erat, whose identity as the Demon King's final gambit is an open secret known by everyone and is also the one talent the Demon King prizes the most. As Erat throws a letter at the Demon King's table, he expresses that he would like to resign, and the Demon King sighs before asking what he just said, unconsciously increasing the pressure inside the room. He threateningly stands up and asks how he dared to try to abandon him before dramatically falling at Erat's feet and grabbing hold of his legs, saying that he'll never let him go. He worryingly confirms that he doesn't mean it and asks why he's suddenly deciding to do this, but Erat doesn't answer and guiltily looks the other way. The Demon King stands up and hysterically asks if there's anything he doesn't like about the castle, and if any of his subordinates didn't show him proper respect or started to openly discriminate him for not being human, but inwardly thinks that it's not possible since the Demon Erat is undeniably powerful despite not being an actual human and possesses incredible superhuman strength that most people fail to achieve even after years of dedicated hard work, remembering his skills on the field. But Erat declines and says that his subordinates haven't done anything wrong, to which the Demon King what else the reason is, since he can't tell what he's mulling over from his expression. He starts saying if he doesn't tell him, but is interrupted by Erat, who asks if he'll kill him if he doesn't answer. The Demon King is continuing something about his subordinates, but outrageously exclaims after hearing Erat's answer and reassures him that there's no way he'll kill him and says that he just wants to know why, asking why he'd think that when he knows how much he treasures him. The Demon King then takes a wild guess and asks if it's because he didn't send him to the borders recently, before questioning if he's doing this because his body is wanting to fight, and says that he should know that he can't do anything about that since his current condition, but is stopped once again by Erat, who says that it's nothing like that and tells him to wait a minute and to please calm down before a trickle of blood runs down his nose and splatters onto the floor. The Demon King worryingly says that he's bleeding again before Erat apologizes for dirtying the floor and tries to cover it with his hand, but the Demon King quickly calls for the Zero Corps Commander's doctor in panic and asks what he's doing when Erat's so sick. Later, the doctor bent him before the Demon King worryingly inquires about his condition, so she says that it's an after effect of the injury he received in his fight against the hero, but the Demon King says that he didn't call her to confirm what he already knew and tells her to find a cure as soon as possible, so she wheels him away on a bed as Erat thinks about how he just wanted to live a normal life. He admits that he's Dion Hart, the weakest human born with the weakest body that collapses from the tiniest bit of stress and was mistaken for someone strong. His aide enters the room and hands him a mirror cube he had bought from the human realm and tells him to get some good rest. Meanwhile, the Demon King remembers how he dived into the battlefield and single-handedly taken out the hero before he'd told him to join the Demon King's army. His eyes fall on a paper lying on his desk and calls a meeting for all the Corps Commanders, remarking that Erat will be satisfied with this. Dion remarks that he's feeling really upset right now since the Demon King called for him as soon as he was about to lie down and get some ample rest, wondering why he's suddenly conducting a meeting for all the Corps Commanders right after advising him to rest, and if it means that all the other demonic Corps Commanders have been summoned as well, before saying that he can't believe he's getting him to meet with the other terrifying commanders when he's already scared of ordinary demons, and asks if the Demon King wants to walk him to the gallows. As the others look at him, they wonder if he's at ease now and if he's angry because of the abrupt summons, so he decides to play it cool since he won't stand a chance if he accidentally messes with one of them and ends up in an uncalled for duel. as a female demon asks if he's the human and says that she doesn't remember his name. A male next to her mocks her for not remembering his name and says he was there when he murdered the hero. Back then, when the Demon King had asked his name, he'd nonchalantly replied that it was Demon Erat, and the female admiringly says that's the most demon-like name she's ever heard, while Dion annoyingly thinks that he'd said that his name was Dion Hart, not Demon Erat. The two notice his expression and remark that they'd heard that he has a lot of pent-up stress because of not being able to fight right now, and decide to leave before he kills them for just standing in his way, while Dion says there's no way he'd be able to beat them because of his body and wonders why the misunderstanding just keeps increasing before admitting that no one messes with him because of it. He thinks that he'll die immediately if he's caught and decides to act confident to not let anyone realizes his weakness before he's found a way to escape the demonic realm. He strides towards the cheery-looking guys guarding the door and confidently orders them to open the doors as their expression becomes worried before they oblige. As he enters the room, the Demon King grandly welcomes and introduces him to the others, and the first Corps Commander, Jakar, advises him to sit next to the Demon King, while the third Corps Commander, Aldi's, remarks that he seems weak no matter how he looks at him and thinks that he'd love to have a bout with him. The sixth commander, Velatin, asks if he was accomplishing any objective that led him to be late, but gets smacked by the fourth commander, Adelia, who says he must have his reasons. And the 11th commander angrily thinks about how the useless buffed-up block dared disrespect Lord Erat. As he takes a seat, he asks himself why there are so many commanders and nervously thinks about how scary and stressful it is, expressing his wish to go back to his room. The Demon King inquires if he's fine, to which he replies that he is and apologizes for being late to the meeting, but the king doesn't think much of it and tells him not to worry since it's not his fault, but Dion inwardly remarks that it is, since he was late on purpose because of a strong desire to not attend the meeting. A servant walks to him and pours him a drink as Dion blissfully sees the alcohol splashing around in his glass and remarks that one can drink as much alcohol as they'd like during a meeting, which is the only reason he's still in this realm. But he notices that it isn't alcohol at all but grape juice and realizes that they're discriminating against him, but the Demon King says he ordered them to do this, while Dion wonders if they've found out how useless he actually is before Velatin explains after the king orders him to that the 12th Corps have been protecting the village so far, but the number of demonic monsters has gone through an abrupt rise which was too much for them, so they relocated to a fortress but are expecting ambush to happen sooner or later. While Dion remembers that demonic monsters are failed products that have given into their instincts and desires, and realizes that the 12th commander was taken down by them as well, but wonders what it's got to do with him before the Demon King says that the hero used to hunt them but was killed recently, resulting in the increase of the monsters, before the others start saying that Lord Erat was the one who killed him. But Dion thinks that he never did that in the first place, and the Demon King already intended to murder the hero anyways, and gives him a dark look. Seeing this, the Demon King says that the Zero Corps are going to take care of the demonic monsters, which completely shocks Dion, who says that his body isn't in perfect condition, leading to Jakar's opinion of him rising because of his heed to good judgment, while Aldi's appreciatively admits that he wants to fight him even more now. The Demon King reassures him that he doesn't need to overexert himself and confirms if it's not difficult for him. Seeing the looks of all the commanders, Dion remarks that it is hard for him, but now that it's come to it, he'll make sure to leave the demonic realm whether the Demon King agrees to it or not, and announces that he'll go. As Dion is dejectedly sitting in the cart on his way, he remarks that he was caught while trying to run away and they moved up his departure date, and thinks about how the Demon King had caught him packing things in his getaway bag and had mistaken it for him running away to the battlefield to join the fighting as soon as possible. He thinks that he couldn't really have told him that he was going to run away to the Empire, although life there wasn't really any better with a crazy emperor who'd thrown him into the battlefield against the Demon King of all people and an old brother who heartily hated and wanted him dead. He sees Ed and the other Zeroth Corps riding beside him and says he's heard they were quite strong, before deciding to try to lead the attack, then slowly retreat while the others take care of the messy business. Agreeing to this tactic, he reaches in a paper bag and takes out the special wine made in the demonic realm that has a heavenly taste, even though the Demon King had forbidden him from drinking it at the meeting. He'd been able to sneak a bottle with him. He pops open the cork and heartily takes a deep swig, thinking that he should just treat himself to something good now that he's already dug himself into a grave, while Ed wonders why he's so quiet, before thinking if it's because of the incident that happened before they left, remembering how an assistant had requested him to not ride on the horse and to travel through the carriage since the Demon King had ordered it. Even though Dion had inwardly been wondering why he would want to travel on the very uncomfortable horse and that he would obviously ride in the carriage, he'd made a show of reluctantly agreeing to it and getting into the carriage, while Ed worryingly looked from behind him and now says that he'd let him do whatever he wants but can't really disobey the king. A soldier points toward the village that is now bathed in flames and filled with the bodies of its residents lying on the ground as they find out that the creatures got here before them. Ed tells them to get ready to pursue the monsters, but they confront them instead, so they get ready and prepare to fight. As they're fighting, he admits that there are way too many of them before a soldier urgently tells him to watch out as a humongous werewolf gets ready to attack him as he angrily admits that he got distracted. Meanwhile, Jakar asks the Demon King if the Zeroth core will be enough for the overwhelmingly large population of monsters, which proved difficult for even the 12th commander and were the reason behind his demise, but the king reassures him and says it's fine since even if they run into a problem, they've got him. Dion swiftly slashes the wolf through before staggering and pointing the sword at Ed's face, who realizes that he's drunk, asking if he's the enemy, but when he says he isn't, Dion points to Wolf approaching him and asks if it's an enemy before being thrown against a wall by it. He starts grinning and says that it is the enemy before getting up and starting to slash through all of them, thinking to himself to let the madness take over, to have just enough sanity left to be able to discern friend from foe, to leave no bodies intact, to keep stabbing even if the enemy's dead, to make the enemies fear him, and acknowledges that this is how he managed to survive in this world, being the weakest. Meanwhile, at the human emperor's palace, the empowered disbelievingly inquires about the Zeroth Corps commander, and a hooded figure in a bow says a soldier patrolling the demonic realm reported to him that the Zeroth Corps commander has joined the fight against the creatures and confirms that he's as dangerous and merciless as the rumors called him to be according to the report, and is known to be the Demon King's treasured talent. Hearing this, the Emperor, Eduardo Desert, remarks that reminds him of someone he knew and says they can't just quietly sit by while the Demon King takes the course of action, before remarking that he believes that they have the perfect person for the job before asking a hooded figure what he thinks. Eduardo says that he's thinking of giving him a chance to bring honor to his empire, to which the figure confidently says that he humbly receives his command and clenches his fist before Eduardo appreciates him and tells him to become that kind of talent. A place where such a large amount of blood was shed just for the glory of the empire, especially that of those on the front lines who'd honorably sacrificed their lives for the sake of their kingdoms. Dion says that they were nothing but human shields casually left to die by their own empires, and that this is just hell, nothing more, nothing less, and coming to this hell for their empire is no more than a joke. As he swiftly fights one enemy after another, he acknowledges that he didn't ask for any of it and has absolutely no intention of throwing away his life for an empire that forced him to go through this hell. He admits that he's just trying to do the best he can and that dying for them had never been an option, saying that he will survive and eventually get his revenge before hurriedly waking up with a start. He wonders what he dreamt of, since all he remembers is just that it was really serious, and wonders if he's in his room before noticing a calm Ben and a crying Ed, who says that he was asleep for an entire day. Ben explains that he was treating him in his sleep but gave him a fright when he was brought back, completely drenched in blood. Confused, Dion asks what he's talking about, why he's here, and inquires about the mission. But Ed says that the creature hunt was successful since only a handful of the creatures left at the end and ran away in panic and fear. But he fell unconscious, so they brought him back to the castle to get treatment. But Dion still seems confused, so Ben explains that he might be going through temporary memory loss since a creature struck him hard but he got back up again right after, so they'd assumed he was alright. He suddenly remembers all that happened and wonders what these memories are, thinking that he might have done something after getting drunk, but realizes that it's not just an injury, it's a complete blackout since he must gone on a rampage. Ben tries to cheer him up and says that he was amazing in the mission and pulled through even when outnumbered, which is why the entire Zeroth Corps completed a mission without a single casualty. But Dion apologizes to Ed for stepping in and making a mess of the situation, but he says that he was phenomenal and easily turned the tides of the battle single-handedly, before saying that he's really the epitome of a good commander. But Ben reproaches him for going overboard, while Ed promises to get stronger and not become a burden for him, as Dion frustratingly says that he isn't the gifted fighter they think he is. Adelia and Aldis stride in through the door, and she says she had heard he was awake before starting to argue with Aldis, who tells her to lower her voice since he's still in recovery. But Jakar tells them to stay quiet and to silently pay their respects and leave since they're making him uncomfortable, as the three take a look at Dion's dejected expression. He wonders what the best way would be to get them out of his room, as Aldis realizes that he must be quite tense since he just returned from a mission before Jakar asks him to not fight them in anger and kill someone inside the castle's premises, as he's wondering what he means and admits that it'd be a miracle if he could land a single punch on them. He realizes that they won't show him any mercy if they found out just how weak he is, and a stroke of genius hits him as he decides to act as if he's showing them mercy, and set up a few favors for him in the near future, since they might even spare his life if they find out the truth about him. He coldly tells them that he's upset, but starts preaching that being upset is no reason to resort to violence, because sometimes the best course of action in most situations is to show mercy, even if someone lies to you or is weaker than you. He says that he hopes they can find it in their hearts to show them mercy, and thinks about wrapping it up, since if they remember what he said later on, it'll definitely work in his favor, and turns to face their stone faces as they agree to it. Jakar acknowledges that he has a fearful way of showing forgiveness to other people and clears his throat before saying that he'd heard his mission was a success, as Adelia reverts to her colorful, cheery mood and tells him that everyone in the castle is appreciatively praising his act of bravery, and how he wiped out over half the creatures present there. He frighteningly wonders what kind of false rumor that is, thinking that he's taking the credit for someone else's work, but notices Ed's beaming face and becomes confused as to why he has that expression on his face before Aldis says that he had also heard of his exceptional performance and visited him to make a formal request, to which Dion thinks that he doesn't like where it's going before Aldis asks him to officially spar with him once he's fully recovered, after which Dion wonders in shock why the third commander and the personal bodyguard of the Demon King himself wants to spar with him. Dion questioningly repeats if Aldis wants to spar with him, to which he replies that he's always heard about how amazing he is and is hoping to learn a few things from him, while Jakar admits that it'd be interesting and thinks about how Eret has never sparred with anyone since becoming a commander, and that this would be a good chance to be able to witness his skills with his own eyes, and wonders if he'll accept the request. Adelia becomes excited hearing Aldis' request and says that she'll tell everyone to come since the 4th Corps is in charge of handling all intel, to which he grudgingly accepts, telling her to just not get in the way. Dion tries to deny but sees the array of different expressions on each of their faces, and wonders how he's supposed to say no before annoyingly asking himself why they decided this without his permission, and looking at the incredibly large stature of Aldis, thinking that a single punch from him would be enough to break him into a million different pieces. He admits his reluctance with accepting the challenge and says that the gruesome battle with the creatures is still fresh in his mind, which is why there's a possibility of his power being too much, but Aldis seems unconvinced, wondering why he's backing out of a duel, as Dion realizes that he's not buying it and tries to come up with a better excuse, but is thankfully saved by Jakar, who seems to think that his explanation is entirely plausible and understands that the reason behind him not sparring with anyone since becoming commander is because he can't warrant their safety. Aldis realizes what he means and asks if that's true, to which Jakar explains that it is, and that he refused for Aldis' sake, since the fact that the large-scale battle against the creatures is still fresh in his mind will make it even harder for him to hold himself back against an opponent and keep his powers in check, meaning that if they were to fight, their duel wouldn't end until one of them has died. Aldis clenches his fist and realizes that Adol's confident in his victory before saying that he knows he can take on any commander but can't actually guarantee his victor, before wondering where his confidence comes from and seeing that this is the Demon King's most treasured talent. He bows and thanks Dion for his thoughtfulness before saying that he hasn't backed down yet, and asking him to reconsider his request once he's gotten stronger, with a bright flame burning in his eyes. He bids him farewell and runs away, saying that he's going off to train, while Dion tries to stop him and falls down once he's gone. Seeing this, Ed worryingly asks Adila and Jakar to let him get some rest, to which they agree and decide go, but before leaving, Jakar asks Dion to consider him as an opponent as well after having his duel against Aldis. Hearing this, Dion, who'd managed to get back up with Ed's help, falls back down again, telling himself that he needs to get out of the demon realm. As he tiredly leans near a pillar, he says to himself that he managed to get out, but Ed's constant requests that he should go visit the members of the Zeroth Corps who are dying to see him, and Ben's advices that staying inside his room will slow down his recovery process, so he should go get some outdoor exercise, added on to all these consistent remarks that he's training himself day and night to get ready for their fated duel, have led to the stress going through the roof for him, and frustratingly asks what's wrong with them before kicking off a stone that strikes a demon on the back of his head, before he angrily turns around to see who it is and bows low after seeing Dion apologizing for being the cause of the noise and tell him that a dirty incubus was blocking their way, so they were teaching her a lesson. As the incubus timidly looks at him, he remembers how he'd heard that they were the lowest ranking demons, which is why they were trying to gang up on her. Seeing his angered expression, the demons excuse themselves and quickly scurry away, as he wonders what he should do since it's the first time he's come across someone weaker than him. The incubus nervously wonders what she's supposed to do, remembering the rumors she'd heard about him, and starts thinking if this'll be her last day, but he offers her a hand, so she surprisingly asks why he's not disgusted with her, so he hoists her up and asks if she's disgusted with him since he's a human. She replies that she obviously doesn't, and he tells her that the same rings true for him, thinking how she's trying to stay alive in this brutal realm before she smiles with an odd look in her eyes and asks him to spare some time so that she can return the favor, as he worryingly feels that he's landed in a problematic situation. Meanwhile, the Demon King enters Dion's room, but it's empty, so he wonders where he went.